All right, I guess I'm going to be talking for a little bit again on this episode of Jeremiah Talks to Himself. um, shit. I'm huge in the camera. Okay, what's up? Today it's like 104 out, so Jack and I rescheduled our meetings and our jobs for the day to stay home and to not melt and to yeah, catch up on other stuff. So I was doing some casual reading in the um, Arboriculture and Urban Forestry magazine. Um, and I found another study that I found interesting, and therefore you might find it interesting. I'm not going to read you through this whole study, but I've highlighted some points and I'm going to talk about some things that I found cool. Um, this was headed by Glenn Percival, who I talked about in another video about resistance, inducing resistance in plants as an alternative to pesticide use. Very cool topic. You should check that video out if you think thinking about trees is cool. This study is titled The Evaluation of Nature-Based and Traditional Solutions for Urban Soil Decompaction. Reading the title, I was like, what is that? What is nature-based solutions? Just leave it alone. Uh, the answer was no, but it was just the title that like got me like, what are we talking about here? So again, I'm not going to go through the entire study, but I have highlighted some important things. Some highlights in the abstract here. Two potential nature-based decompaction solutions, the addition of earthworms and nitrogen-fixing white clover, were evaluated in combination with existing decompaction systems like vertical mulching and wood chip surface layer. Essentially, they're putting worms in the ground and they're planting plants in the fabaceae. Uh, Plants in the fabaceae have nitrogen-fixing structures in their root systems that are basically like housing for uh, bacteria that fix nitrogen into like usable forms for trees. Um, this isn't new, but I think the reason they're choosing white clover probably is because it's like um, acceptable to like an urban aesthetic. You know, there's a ton of different species in the Fabaceae. They probably do this to varying degrees, but yeah, just by being in that family, I think this is a property that all of them have. So they did a bunch of decompaction stuff to um, their plots, and they measured bulk density, organic matter, pH, estimated nitrogen release. They did a cotton strip degradation, which I'll read on later. I thought that was pretty cool. I'd never heard of that. And they counted earthworms. And the metrics of the trees that they were looking at were the diameter at breast height, canopy density, and root dry mass. And the study was over 3 years. And the results were that all decompaction treatments independently and in combination significantly reduced soil decompaction and improved tree growth with little difference recorded between treatments. Over time, however, earthworm populations migrated from the treated decompacted soil into the surrounding untreated decompacted soil, in turn significantly improving soil quality, allowing for enhanced root growth outside the treated area. When I read that, I was like, wait, worms are the answer. Uh, Worms aren't on their own just the answer, but like it was just a funny thought because my friend Jack Trainer had shown me an article a while ago about people putting worms in their vertical mulch pits, and he showed it to me and explained this exact phenomena. And I was like, damn, that sounds so brilliant. Um, and this study also confirms that, you know, by introducing earthworms with organic material, um, like they just sort of like radiate beyond from where you put them. And in their wake, they're reducing compaction in the soil as they travel and do worm stuff. That to me was so cool. And like this is certainly something that I'm going to start including in my decompaction stuff. Um, if you don't know the approach for soil decompaction, I'm not going to explain that in this video, but perhaps that gives me an idea to make another video explaining our process and explaining why we make certain choices and when. And I think too, like amending like the physical properties of urban soil is probably something that you should do before you even look at tree nutrition, because so often soil compaction is not addressed that it doesn't matter like if you're putting the most nutrients in the soil if the soil can't hold any water, if the roots can't respirate, if the roots have nowhere to grow. It doesn't matter if you're putting nutrients in the ground. So that's to say that I think learning how to do decompaction stuff should come before you learn how to do like fertilization stuff. I also think that the tools for decompaction are there's a much lesser barrier of entry to that set of tools than there are to like doing traditional like big arb soil fertilization stuff in liquid form. I think the solids are actually way more easy to use and to integrate and measure. And all right, I'm on a tangent. In conclusion, they say that long-term sustainable nature-based solutions do exist for professionals. Um, so I'm gonna check some things as I scroll down. Yeah, so they chose some trees in a park. These trees had symptoms of uh, severe compaction. They measured the bulk density of the soils, and it was higher than the root limiting bulk density, which is 1.47 grams per cubic centimeter. Um, they were on some linden species. The control was no soil decompaction work was undertaken. One of the approaches was a vertical mulch. They explained the details. Just a wood chip mulch on the surface of the soil, combining vertical mulching and wood chip mulching, and then combining vertical mulch, wood chip mulch, and worms. They also did a vertical mulch with white clover and vertical mulch, white clover, and worms. So they did 6 different variations and had one control. They go on to explain how they measured the DBH, how they measured canopy density, bulk density, estimated nitrogen release, organic matter, and pH. The cotton strip assay was interesting to me because essentially they just put a piece of cotton, they weigh its mass, so they measure its mass, and essentially just bury it. And then sometime later they pull it back out and they measure the weight again, the dry weight, and they use that as a way to measure biological activity in the soil. Skipping down now to, I think, the discussion section. That's where I found most of the interesting stuff. All right, about the earthworm thing. That was originally what fascinated me, so I checked here first. First paragraph is explaining what worms are and what worms do. I'm going to assume that you know what worms are and what worms do. Using that cotton decomposition assessment, um, it indicated that the highest levels of decomposition were in worm-amended soils combined with vertical mulching and a wood chip mulch layer, suggesting this treatment, so essentially all three of those combined, promoted the greatest degree of biological and microbial activity below ground. Cool. That's cool. Um, I know that more isn't inherently better. I'm sure that there's like a maximum where you want like your organic matter content. And if your organic matter content um, accumulates so fast that the existing microbes cannot deal with it, I think there's a set of problems that can arise from that as well. So just know that like dumping organic matter and worms isn't like inherently the approach. There's a little bit more like sophistication to that, but that is kind of the gist, though. Um, But yeah, this has made me think that oh yeah, I don't know if it was in this study or if it was another one, but I saw some criticism of the typical vertical mulching strategies. Um, and I think that a different approach moving forward was like to narrow the holes or rather make them closer together um, than the traditional like two every foot or whatever it is. I think more holes but narrower or something like that was like a thing that I saw. It may have even been in the study. I may just be getting some wires crossed. Um, but yeah, like this just makes me think that I'm going to add earthworms into my decompaction zones. But in my region, I'm in Michigan, and this area was glaciated, and so I don't think there's any like native earthworm populations here. I think they're all introduced. Um, and I don't want to poke the bear or anything, but given that there are non-native earthworms everywhere here, yeah, it just makes me think if there's broader implications of me adding earthworms into my soils that I work on for that fact. But if you live in a place where earthworms survive the glaciation, um, yeah, maybe you should look up some earthworms that are native to you and like use those in yours too. So the coolest part beyond that was that at 28 months, the last at 28 months, at a distance of 1 meter from the decompacted area, the soil bulk density of worm-amended soil ranged from 1.45 and 1.38, whereas non-decompacted control soil 1 meter away had a bulk density of 1.8. Um, so the worms moved beyond where they were put, just like other studies have suggested. The worms did that, and in doing so, they reduced the soil bulk density. And by doing earthworm stuff, they are improving soil organic matter content. The results of this study indicate that earthworm inoculation offers potential as an integral component of sustainable land decompaction practices. Um, yeah, I went on to kind of read through the clover thing, and they explained probably more eloquently than I did. Jack and I were recently doing a huge soil decompaction job. And it's funny that I'm reading this now because this was maybe like a month and a half ago. But we were getting all the grass out and we kept encountering clover. And we even said out loud to each other, like, should we leave the clover? Knowing that what it does. We decided not to, but now in hindsight, I'm like, I wonder if we like put like clover seeds in with the soil improvement area. That would be cool. That would be so cool, dude. It would look nice too. Maybe not like throughout the whole thing, but like have little like pockets of it. That would look cool. People would think it looks like weeds if it weren't like done, I guess, in a pattern. And in conclusion, they say that a treatment combining traditional methods with potential nature-based solutions involving earthworm soil amendment uh, proved to be the most effective at enhancing the physical, chemical, and biological properties of compacted urban soil over a 3-year period. So, like, worms kind of are the answer. Importantly, over time, the degree of compaction in the surrounding soil decreased, with earthworm migration identified as a contributing factor. The results demonstrate that an effective, sustainable decompaction method exists, providing arborists with a nature-based option to improve compacted soils within urban landscapes. I think still that um, people should look more into this thing as a thing to do for trees. Yeah, maybe throughout this whole thing, I'll be like putting up like pictures of some of ours. But yeah, I think we should probably make a video on it because I feel like I've not seen it um, showcased amongst all of the tree killing stuff everywhere online. Should Jack and I make a video on soil decompaction zones? And yeah, use worms. Would you love me if I was a worm?